gospel narratives, they do not hold anything concerning the cleansing of the natural human fault, of the locating of quote-unquote transgression within anyone. They don't hold any sort of sin finding within them, which narrative the individual has to bring over from their understanding of the Pauline school of thought. When you get into the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John context, the narrative is not about pointing out human frailty, human fault, and the disliking of it by some deity. It is more about pointing out the fraudulence and the fault of priesthood. The fraudulence and the fault of priesthood is the only intention that the Jesus character serves. We've seen in episodes prior this, but yet again, jumping into the book of Matthew. Matthew 23, 33 to 36. You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Wherefore, behold, I send unto you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify, some of them you shall scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city, that upon you may come all the righteous blood shed upon the earth, from the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias, the son of Berechiah, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon who? Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation. All of this that we are reading in the Matthews and the Lukes and the stories, they are all concerned with only one generation, not your generation, not my generation, not generation 100 years ago, not a generation 200 years ago, not a generation 1,000 years ago. This generation is supposed to meet the damnation of hell. Who is that? Matthew 24, 15 and 16. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Meeting hell is the same abomination of desolation, which is the same destroyer of Daniel 9's city and sanctuary. Daniel 9:26, I just want to pay attention to point B. Point B in Daniel 9:26 reads, and the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The Jesus character does not have time. There's no time for this literary instrument to worry about natural human fault. Why? Because natural human fault and its alleviation, its alleviator, is already taken care of. It's not him that's going to be taking care of it. It's already taken care of. To the book of Luke. Luke 5:24, but that you may know that the Son of Man hath power upon earth to forgive sins, he saith unto the sick of the palsy, I say unto you, arise, take up thy couch, and go into thine house. The Jesus character understands that sin and its forgiveness, I should say the forgiveness of sin, is not something that he has power or control over. That's not what he's there for. And he understands that that's not what he's there for because there's already one that takes care of that. Psalm 68. Psalm 68:24. They have seen thy goings, O God, even the goings of my God, my King, in the sanctuary. Who is this King in the sanctuary? Psalm 68:20 and 21. He that is our God is the God of salvation, and unto God the Lord belong the issues from death. Unto God, all capital G-O-D, the Lord, belong the issues from death. But God shall wound the head of his enemies, and the hairy scalp of such an one as goeth on still in his trespasses. In the previous 2 episodes of Justification, we've been looking at this figure, this deity that is associated to dead bodies and to killing. And again, the witness in Psalm 68 is here. and it is attached to the same Lord at that right hand in Psalm 110. This Lord, all capital G-O-D, is responsible for the dead bodies, and he is also responsible for the alleviation of sin, and he is also responsible for the heavenly sanctuary because he is the high priest of the heavenly sanctuary. The Jesus character understands this. He is scripted to understand this, and so it's not his concern when it comes to sin, as he's the representative of the individual advocate already existing in the heavenly sanctuary. But his mission and his ministry is for the cleansing of the land. It's for the cleansing of the land of the religious error of the priesthood. Now, to really get what that means, one has to, and I've already reviewed this, but again, it is here fitting, so I will briefly touch on it. Understand that there are two main deities, two main kings, two main gods to the mythology connected to the Israelite folks. To the mythology connected to the Israelite folks. There are two main deities, two main kings, two main gods. To the book of Psalms, to the Psalms 47 and 2. The Lord, all capital L-O-R-D, Most High is terrible. He is the great king over all the earth. That's 1. 2. Psalm 68:24. They have seen thy goings, O God, even the goings of my God, my king, in the sanctuary. The first king sits on the heavenly throne within the heavenly sanctuary as Israel's almighty ruler and king, who they believe is also supreme ruler over all the world and the earth. The second has a throne of his own, but he does not rule the world and the earth, but rather the heavenly sanctuary and everything that goes on within it. The ministry of the Jesus character himself, calls the attention to this Son, who is also this Lord, all capital G-O-D, who is ultimately, both of these titles being the same thing, the high priest of the all capital L-O-R-D of Israel, on that throne within that same sanctuary. This heavenly temple shares two. 1, all capital L-O-R-D. 2, the Lord, all capital G-O-D. These are the two most that the Israelite mythology is concerned with. The Jesus character understands this. That's why when he directs anything related to himself, he relates it in the third person to this already existing high priest. His ministry is intended to call attention to that already existing high priest, as is evident in the book of Isaiah 61. Isaiah 61:1, the Spirit of the Lord, and notice who this figure is again, the Spirit of the Lord, all capital G-O-D, is upon me. Because again, another deity is mentioned here as anointing me to preach. The all capital L-O-R-D has anointed me to preach, and he has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, proclaim liberties to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. We pay attention. We have to pay attention to what the authors are doing here. They're separating entities in this one verse, blatant. The Jesus character understands his devotion to this Son and believes. He believes that he is so intimately connected to this Son that anything that happens to him, it will cause a reaction from this Son. Because this Son, who is this same Lord, all capital G-O-D, who is this same high priest at the right hand of the all capital L-O-R-D, whose rule is high priest and also executor of judgment for the purpose of piling up the dead bodies. He believes that the individuals that would harm him, if anything should harm him, it will fall back on them to trigger Psalm 69. Psalm 69, 22-25. Let their table become a snare before them, and that which should have been for their welfare, let it become a trap. Let their eyes be darkened, and that they see not, and make their loins continually shake. Pour out thine indignation upon them, and let thy wrathful anger take hold of them. Let their habitation be desolate, and let none dwell in their tents. The Jesus character only exists as a literary tool to explain the destruction of Jerusalem. Only this. If he is harmed, Jerusalem will meet hell. And the hell that Jerusalem will meet is Rome. And the author already knows that it is Rome. The Jesus character does not have time to talk about anything cosmic because it's already taken care of. He gets it. He is scripted to get it. Already taken care of. But what's not seeing any justice, what's not receiving justice, is the priesthood. Is how they are doing things. Why they are doing things the way they are doing things. Why they are continuing, despite their fault and despite them perpetuating the fault that the mind at the core from Genesis to Malachi dislikes. The literary purpose for this Jesus character is to pronounce and articulate the reason behind the destruction of Jerusalem.
Let the Bible be your sanctuary of peace, reflection, and wisdom. Let each verse light your path, like a lantern guiding travelers through night's darkest hours. Embrace words of wisdom as leaves to a tree, each one vital for your growth and nourishment. In moments of uncertainty, let its counsel be the anchor, steadying your ship amidst life's stormy seas. Seek counsel not just in joy, but in trials, for in its guidance you'll find a friend. Let every parable, every psalm, resonate within you, creating a heart and soul that is newly attuned to think and feel. Thus, journey with the Bible as your guide and counselor, and let its wisdom light your path to an enduring peace.
The Jesus character exists to help individuals understand the definition of sin, the definition of sinners, and the intended experience away from sin and from sinners. Ephesians 2, 14 and 15, for he is our peace, who hath made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make in himself of twain one new man, so making peace. Now, what does it mean to have abolished in his flesh the concept of the philosophy of the religious law? Romans 3, 20 and 21. Therefore, by the deeds of the law, shall there no flesh be justified in his sight. For by the law is the knowledge of sin. But now the righteousness of God without the law is manifested, being witnessed by the law and the prophets. Abolishing flesh, the concept, abolishing in his flesh, I should say, the concept of the philosophy of the religious law, that crucifixion only should witness to the fact that by the deeds of the religious law, justification cannot occur. Romans 10, 4 and 5. For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone that believeth. For Moses describeth the righteousness which is of the law, that the man which doeth those things shall live by them. And of course, the most blatant, Galatians 3, 11 and 13, but that no man is justified by the law in the sight of God, it is evident, for the just shall live by faith, and the law is not of faith, but the man that doeth them shall live in them. Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is every one that hangeth on a tree. See, what these authors are doing is that they are correctly understanding the literary concept behind the Jesus character. The literary concept behind the Jesus character as an instrument to articulate the individual devotional character's position at the present moment. At the present moment does not reconcile within this individual a literal body, a literal anything, because there's nothing literal that is attached to a character in a screenplay or a character on a script. This is not intended to be a real person. This is intended to be a literary tool, a literary instrument. Sure, based upon components and a dig into history can show the historical character that this individual is actually referencing. But the ultimate literary purpose for this character is to illustrate, quote unquote, redemption, and quote-unquote redemption from the philosophy of the religious law, which is, in essence, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the narratives, the complete concept within them. The enemy is the philosophy of the religious law. The enemy are the ones purporting the philosophy of the religious law. The enemy is the center of the philosophy of the religious law. This is the main enemy, and this is what needs to be cleansed. Again, this has nothing to do with natural human fault. That will be taken care of so long as you understand the concept that is here embodied. The underlying point is the literary instrument that this character is set for, which is to show, and better than me saying this right now, let's just go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 15:56, the sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. It's very plain. The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. This is allowing us, and this stays true to the concept from Genesis to Malachi, to understand the concept of quote-unquote sin. The way that it is articulated in context, quote-unquote sin has nothing to do with your natural human error. My natural human error. When you are dead, when you are a sinner, when you are in death, when you are sinning, it has everything to do with one's compliance to the philosophy of the religious law, which, in essence, should send the mind, when understanding this revelation, to Psalm 51. Psalm 51:10, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. This is the ultimate philosophical intention that the Jesus character serves. To allow the individual devotional conversations conscience to realize its resurrection in mind, away from death, away from sin, which in the context of the Bible always means sin and death, religious law. The Jesus character dying for natural human fault, or any character dying for natural human fault, it's not something that the Bible, when I'm saying Bible, Genesis to Malachi, it is not something the Bible supports. Now, in the New Testament, the Jesus character dying for natural human fault is not even something that it wholeheartedly supports. And whether you are in the New Testament or whether you are in the Bible, Genesis to Malachi, it cannot support this. There can be no support for the abolishing of sin and of death or of anything of that nature due to what is written in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 42:5, thus saith God the Lord, he that created the heavens and stretched them out, he that spread forth the earth and that which cometh out of it, he that giveth breath unto the people upon it, and spirit to them that walk therein. Now I'm pointing this verse out because if we are going to believe that sin is natural wrong, or the human fault is whatever the human fault is, we're gonna have to look to the one that actually generated or initiated us and find some sort of fault with that. As if the one that did this, all of this, including you, including me, the one that initiated this did this by accident, or there's something wrong with this creator's mind, quote unquote creator's mind, or there's something. That's what the idea from the New Testament might convey. In reality, we are built this way generally. This is not an accident, natural human fault, natural human transgression or fault, however you want to mysteriously put that. There's nothing wrong. And there's nothing wrong because this is how we're created. We're created fractured. The one that creates a chair understands the reason for why they're creating a chair. The one that creates a pool understands the reason for why they are creating a pool. The one that designs a car understands the reason for why they are designing a car. Now, the one designing a chair understands the drawbacks to designing a chair the moment they are creating it and the moment that it's finished. The one designing a pool understands the drawbacks to what a pool is the moment that they are designing it and putting it into play with water in it. The one that is designing a car understands the drawbacks to designing a car. They all understand, every single one of these creators, the faults when going into creating them. It's absolutely no different for the human being. The human condition is created naturally faulty. Naturally faulty. And as a matter of fact, that natural fracture within the human condition, it is used and is supposed to be used and is given for the purpose of using the experience for personal and inward growth and development. Personal and inward growth and development, again, that goes back to Psalm 51:10, create in me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. The one that put everything here together, let's quote unquote one, the living mind that put everything here into play, did not put everything into play by an accident to where the individuals now here must look for some sort of escape from the initial factor underlying their reason for existing in this domain. That makes absolutely no sense. And the religion that the New Testament is, and especially through the Pauline scheme of things, perpetrating and initiating, it is an absolute contradiction to everything from Genesis to Malachi and the philosophical logic within it. This is how we can understand that the concept from Matthew to the Revelation is fraudulent and has absolutely nothing to do with what is going on from Genesis to Malachi, and especially concerning the first 3 chapters of the book of Genesis, which everything after the book of Genesis, including Matthew to the Revelation, departs from Genesis 1, 2, and 3, standing as a philosophical stance of its own. We individual human beings are created this way not by accident. Yet, there are things that can take us away from ourselves and that can make this living existence absolutely gruesome. One of those, the Jesus character being a literary tool and instrument, highlights the work of priesthood, the machination of priest, and the error, quote-unquote sin, of what comes up out of them, religious law.
Ever wondered how to truly connect with the Bible? In just 60 seconds, you'll discover a unique way to deepen your faith. Knowing Bible is a course crafted to bring you closer to the Bible and yourself. Tailored to fit your learning goals, it offers a personal journey. Through readings, reflections, and interactive classroom dynamics, you'll grow spiritually. Assignments are designed to give you space for personal devotion. This course helps you envision a devotional experience that truly suits you. Imagine a course that meets you where you are and takes you deeper. Don't miss this chance to transform your spiritual life. Click the link in the description for more information.
The individual citing quote-unquote Jesus as their everything has a major decision to make. Because you need to make a decision about which one you're going or you are supporting. Is it the one from the Pauline scheme of things, which is strictly mythological and whose power is cosmic? Or is it the one from the Matthew, Mark's, and Luke's, who is an individual that is not a cosmic individual, who is an individual that is not a Christ, who is an individual that is a representative for the already existing Son at the right hand of the deity of Israel? Which one? And the one that is so obsessed with the quote-unquote Son of Man also has a decision to make, because understanding that this Son of Man is pre-existing already, and that the Jesus character does not call himself this, well, what is going to be your stance? And if both are the individual holding Jesus is something and not able to decide or understand, they need to decide which one, from the Pauline school or from the school of the Gospels, or the one that is so obsessed with the Son of Man, the issue of transgression or the definition of sin. How are you going to now acknowledge that when the Bible's definition is very clear, as apart from what secular religious dogma is, of which the devotional conversation naturally inherits the more that it frequently visits the places of such? Going back to, just again to review, Genesis 3:13. Galatians 3:13. Galatians 3:13, Christ hath redeemed us from the curse of the law, being made a curse for us, for it is written, cursed is every one that hangeth on a tree. This is the most blatant statement about what a redemption concerning this individual character is. In all of this, the redemption is connected to redeeming from the philosophy of the religious law. This has nothing to do with quote-unquote soul. This has nothing to do with quote-unquote spirit. This has nothing to do with quote-unquote afterlife. This has everything to do with what is going on right now with my devotional characters, thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors, which is most emphatically seen from 1 Corinthians 15:56. The strength of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. The string of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. Now, a resurrection is here called into action in 1 Corinthians 15:54. So when this corruptible shall have put on incorruption, and this mortal shall have put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. Now, if death is sin, and if sin is the religious law, this swallowing up, this putting on of immortality, this resurrection, it really has nothing to do with anything phenomenal occurring in the future. Nothing phenomenal occurring in the future, but it has everything to do. It has everything to do with the present at this point in time, and it has everything to do with your devotional character's growth and development. The sting of death is sin, and the strength of sin is the law. This isn't legal secular law. This is religious law, and not just religious law as pertains to the individuals within the context. Throughout Genesis 1, 2, and 3 confirm this. All religious law, every religious law, priesthood, these are the enemies to the Bible. And the literary instrument that the Jesus character is fortifies and solidifies this concept by continually bringing up the generation of vipers and the destruction and hell they will see for the wrongs that they have caused and are causing through their religion and through their religious law. The Jesus character is initiated to directly spell the doom of the city and the sanctuary. In these narratives, there's no room for anything else. So when we look at what the authors are doing here and what they're placing into their narratives, again, which side of the philosophical fence are we going to stand on? Because the intention is to serve the devotional conversation's character and moving beyond where hell resides.